So we had another viewer writing a question, and we'll answer this, but I think we need to talk about this in a broader aspect, not just the question itself.
Right.
But basically the question was, hey, I ride on the street, and when I'm riding on the street, I ride pretty aggressively. I will get my knee down even on the street. What do you guys think of that? Is that okay? Am I way out of line? What's your thought? And it's fairly open-ended without a bunch of ego. I think this is a worthwhile question to answer, though.
It really comes down to risk management. Mm-hmm. Bigger question was, I think he was saying, I ride it, I get 42 degrees of lean angle, and I drag my knee everywhere as a way to measure how much I'm leaning so I don't lean too much and going down the road. Some of his friends are telling him that dragging a knee on a public road is more dangerous than not dragging it. And I think the knee is kind of getting in the way of the actual answer. I think the short answer is you should never, ever be dragging knees on public roads. You shouldn't be going that fast. You shouldn't be carrying that much lean angle. It's a public road. You draw too much attention to yourself. The constabulary law enforcement is not going to look favorably on that. You're just kind of opening a can of worms regardless of the risk of what's going on, right? I think he says, I'm really tall, so my knee touches down easy. I can relate to that. I am not tall. It was many years before my knees touched consistently. So there's some validity in his statement.
Yep.
But I mean, what are your kind of initial thoughts on this before we dive in too deep?
So I think the first thing is, remember, this is a question that we were asked for our opinion on. We are not bringing up this topic so we can stop soapbox and preach at everybody, right? You're adults. You're going to do what you're going to do, regardless of what two guys in a garage think about what you're going to do. Okay, so this isn't our chance to tell you how to live your life.
But it is a sensitive thing, right?
So with that context in mind, like Dave said, it's all about risk. The question is not, my knee touch the ground, does that mean I'm being dangerous? I promise you can be dangerous without your knee on the ground.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I wouldn't say that that's not the line in the sand in my mind. In my mind, it is, and I tell the same thing to people when we do coaching for track riding. If you're in a situation where all of the conceivable situations that could come up in front of you that are not the norm, that are not a dry, grippy track or surface rather, if you can deal with all of the conceivable things that can come up that would throw that out of whack, meaning gravel on the road, fluid on the road, a car crossing the double yellow, or who knows,
hauling a trailer,
wildlife, any number of things that can happen and absolutely do happen on the road. If you're riding in such a way that your speed allows you to deal with that safely and not go off the road and not crash, then that's an acceptable speed, right? If you are coming around a corner and you're going so fast that you're leaned over so far that your knee is on the ground, the odds that if all of a sudden you were surprised by a deer in the middle of the road or a car that's on the side of the road leaking fluid across the road, if you think you could deal with those things, I would, for one, I would doubt that. But two, if that's your level of comfort, then that's your level of comfort with that thing, and that's the risk you're accepting. But I doubt it, right? If you're leaned over that far to be able to drag a knee on the public road, the odds that you're going to perfectly handle some unexpected thing on the road is next to zero, I would say.
So let's talk about the knee for a second, because we do a lot of coaching on the racetrack where the objective for a lot of riders is to get their knee on the ground, right? And I think he even mentioned in his comment that it looks cool, it feels cool. Yeah. It absolutely does.
Looks cool.
Like the first time you drag a knee as a track rider, it's like a momentous moment, right? Like it's a moment that's celebrated.
Yeah.
It's a big accomplishment. But we coach a lot of people who show up for their first or second track day and they're dragging knees almost immediately. And it's almost always caused by they don't really have that great a posture, that their posture is actually causing them to lean more. So their knee is touching premature. We were talking just a few minutes ago about how MotoGP during this one era really blossomed what we understand about motorcycles. And one of those was that lean equals risk, right? Because in the before times, like two-stroke era and stuff like that, you look at old McDoohan photos, his knee was really, like, the way they sat on the motorcycle was so different. Your knee was on the ground constantly. Well, during that era, we basically learned that Lean equals risk. And so everything that we do on a motorcycle is to limit how much the motorcycle is leaning. So to go back to his question about dragging a knee on public roads, okay, taking it from a pure subjective standpoint, I'm willing to bet there are other things he could do with his posture to minimize risk, to reduce how much the motorcycle is leaning without even necessarily changing how fast he may be going, that would put him in a better position. That aiming for or thinking that the knee is kind of a measurement, I think is old thinking. It's not really how we ride anymore. And we see people too that, they're dragging knees everywhere, but their posture is kind of limiting, that their knee touches and they think that's the limit of how far they can lean.
Yeah.
And we've worked with riders who the only way for them to go faster was to correct their posture, get their bum back into the seat, get their knee further away from the ground so they could actually carry more speed. Where their knee touched, they stopped leaning and that became their limit.
Yep.
And on the street, we don't want to be hitting limits.
Right.
Ever.
On the posture piece of this, again, if we're going to talk about the knee down for a second, there are some excellent photos, and I'll see if I can find one that we can post here. Fabio Quartararo is a great example of a guy who he will be leaned over so far in a corner, he will touch an elbow on the curb, and his knee won't be on the curb.
Right. Same thing with Jorge Martin.
Yep, because he's using so much of his upper body, and generally speaking, if you think of take a standard person, right? Everyone's built a little different, but take a standard person, the weight above your hips versus the weight below, you have more mass above your hips, right? So if I can get my upper body, my chest and shoulders, I'm trying to do this without moving away from the mic too much, but if I get my upper body into the inside of the corner a few more inches, if the trade-off of that is my butt has to stay in the saddle a bit more, my knee is further from the ground, but I got my upper body and weight more to the inside, I probably actually got more of the benefit of shifting my weight to the inside than if I were to like scooch my butt and try to really poke my knee out to see if I can't touch the ground with it, right? And again, this is something that we see at the track constantly with people who are just determined to get a knee down. And a lot of times it's at the detriment of their riding and their overall safety and speed in general.
There's a little secret to posture that I don't see anywhere. I see other people in my YouTube space who are talking about how to get off the bike and do all these things, and they're missing this one key step. And it makes such a significant difference.
This feels like such a good clickbait thumbnail title.
But it's what are you doing with your inside ankle? Because if you look at most of the fast guys on YouTube or social media who are dragging knees in places and you look at their inside ankle, almost all of their ankles are soggy, meaning their ankle is relaxed. Their
it's like the heel's
is almost
dropped
down.
Yeah.
And so it's not allowing them to put much weight into the inside peg. It's kind of it's like this soft, flexible thing where what we want to do is we want to like do a calf raise on that inside foot peg where our heel is up in the air. We're pointing our toe down and our inside leg is flexed and really tight. And that makes it easier for you to get your head down, makes it harder for you to get your knee down. But it's such an important factor in keeping the bike more upright for a given speed that you lose so much control and so much precision by having that soggy inside ankle that, I don't know, we haven't seen any photos of this rider who asked a question, but I imagine if we got them flexing their inside ankle, like we talk about all the time, doing that calf raise, that they'd be far less likely to touch a knee and they would be getting the benefit of carrying less lean angle. So you've probably known people, like let's hit the risk mitigation aspect here really quick. You've probably known people who have been injured on motorcycles. I know people who've been injured on motorcycles. And I think it's, and one of the other comments or the other points he made was, it's fun and it looks cool and I find joy in doing this thing.
Yep.
And there's a saying that I hate. I hate this saying. And it's, I want to die doing the thing I love. And I think that is a moronic approach. I want to be able to do the thing I love for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And the only way I really think that can be done, especially in a high-risk sport like motorcycling, is to look at and manage and mitigate risk as much as possible, right? So I'm going to tell a story, and we'll let you tell a story too. I knew a guy, and he was a sweet guy, and it's really important to bring up that he was a really good guy because I didn't want any ill to happen to him. He was a really nice guy, and he discovered sport bikes, got really into them. We didn't have a racetrack at the time. He would go to like a local road. He would sweep all the corners and ride back and forth, dragging his knee in corners. And when you do that a lot on the street, it's eventually like you're going to fall eventually. You will. And he did. He fell a bunch of times. And I even remember one time I was in southern Utah. We were, a day's ride away from Salt Lake City. And it was spring riding. There was still snow on half of the lane. And I remember me and my wife were going through a corner, and here came a guy. Snow was covering his lane, so he was in my lane, my oncoming lane, dragging a knee through a blind corner towards me. And he almost ran me and my wife off the ground. Well, it was this guy. And he ended up crashing so many times that he suffered a traumatic brain injury. He basically lost his business. And now he's living on assisted living from like unbelievably wealthy to basically losing everything because of an inability to manage risk in a more sensible way, right? He effectively died doing the thing he loved doing because he's not the same person anymore.
Right.
And then the question is, was that really worth it? And you have a similar story of someone you knew, right?
Basically, he was a really good guy. He was an attorney. I don't want to go into a ton of detail with it, but he had a similar instance where he had a head injury. Everything kind of unraveled in his life. He's no longer with us, is the short answer of it. But it all came from a head injury. And I'm not trying to use these. I don't think we're using these stories to say, hey, if you drag your knee on the street, this is what's going to come of you, right?
That's not at all we're trying to say.
This isn't some sort of like story that we're trying to tell you here. But the reality is mitigating the risk, and the risk is all around you all the time. But the more you can mitigate it, the less likely these outcomes are going to happen, and the more likely you're going to get to do this sport for longer. So at the end of this story with this guy who's dragging his knee on the street, our main suggestion to you really is, hey, you should ride like this at the racetrack.
And I think like based on his thing, I think
you're going to love it.
He goes to a racetrack. It's going to be like Disneyland. It's going to be the most amazing experience of your life. And
there will be nobody preaching at you that you're doing the wrong thing.
They'll be helping you do it
They'll
more.
love you. These are your people. They're at the track. You're an adult. You're going to do what you're going to do. Don't think too much about what two guys in a garage are telling you, but go do the smart thing that is mitigating the risk and giving you the opportunity to have the most fun you can. And if that's what you're into, if leaning way over and getting your knee down is what you're into, go to the racetrack, because guess what? It's what Dave and I are into.
It's 100%. I'm not being
it's
judgy.
Our thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the track.
I love the same things that he loves.